This is Brent Allan Winters, and this is part 5 of a series of unknown parts concerning the application clause by clause, blow by blow, point by point of our Declaration of 76. We left off last time in paragraph 1 of our Declaration, wherein it tells us that certain rights arise from the laws of nature and of nature's God. And when I say rights, I mean jurisdiction. I mean the right to act concerning a given matter. I mean authority. Authority, right, and jurisdiction all being synonyms. The word right has been hijacked by the Babylonian-minded popular culture to mean something that's very altruistic as opposed to something that is a responsibility, a jurisdiction, the scope of right to act, to exercise, watch this, discernment respecting a given matter. Discernment based upon the laws of nature, that's the unwritten law in God's creation that is seen there, and the laws of nature's God, which is special revelation, the law written in the Bible. It is important at this point to drop a quick footnote and talk a minute about what the word right means. It's an ancient word, and in its ancient meaning, it means jurisdiction. It even means due process. It's an old Germanic root made popular during the times of the Nazis and Adolf Hitler when they talked about the Third Reich. Well, that's the old Anglo-Saxon word, right, variously pronounced throughout Germanic culture, even among the Anglo-Saxons and the Jutes, that's the Danes, when they brought the common law to the Isle of Britain. They called it the Volksrecht, and that had to do more with process. As a matter of fact, the Germans have a word still for law that is not process, that is a sentence given or a statute, but right is a word used to signify the processes, the ways, the paths, the meanings, the way pointed out that government must follow in order for their actions to be lawful. Our common law was called the folk law, and before that it was called the Volksrecht, which is the word for law meaning jurisdiction and process, a way of proceeding, not a list of laws. In that respect, right denotes responsibility, but it is much more than that. It is the right also to protect that jurisdiction, that responsibility, to not allow another to usurp it, to exercise it for a person. That which God has granted in the way of jurisdiction, He grants specifically. And as our common law has long recognized, a specific grant of right, that is jurisdiction, is non-delegable to another. Unless, as I'd said, it is not specific. It is intended not to be delegatable. So we identified what was natural law, and I made the point last session that natural law is not a phrase found in the Bible. The meaning of natural law, as it is understood popularly today, is a result of usurpation on the part of scholastics and elitists practicing their craft of priesthood, priestcraft, which is analogous to statecraft, in the Middle Ages, in the universities established for that purpose to promote the Roman civil code, the city law code of Justinian, to supplant the Bible in Europe. And that's not a conclusion. That statement is based upon the open declarations of those that began the first university in the world at the city of Bologna in Italy. And just as a side note, our phrase of derision, saying that something is baloney, arises from that ancient fact that it was there that the scholastics and the scholastic-minded people established a university under the authority and desire and decree of the Pope of Rome. And scholasticism has proven to be a religion of head knowledge and humanism. God's law and the Bible are based instead upon knowledge of experience. But natural law signifies, in the biblical sense, signifies standards of conduct inherent in any given relationship among men and women. Our First Continental Congress called it the immutable laws of nature, the principles, they said, of the English Constitution, which are still recognized among Englishmen as being the common law of England. And a specific slice of that is the common law of government, which our Constitution of the United States is an expression of. Now, the ever-menacing antagonist of the laws of nature's God, that is, natural law, is the civil or city law of Rome, first spawned, says Frederick Maitland, at Babylon, and that city law rooted at Rome, and then grew groping tentacles that now, by ever-multiplying limbs, grip our globe, every country almost. And our Declaration of '76 complains of the king and his cronies' use of civil law in its four forms: administrative law, admiralty law, martial law, and canon law, to overcome the American colonist common law rights. And when I say right, I mean their jurisdiction, non-delegable, to exercise discernment concerning right and wrong. That is what they wanted, and that is why they took up arms against the most powerful army and navy in the world at that time. Natural law, the laws of nature, is the inborn knack to sense right from wrong that sleeps in every person until threat of harm, outrageous conduct, righteous outrage, or a passion for kindness arouses it. Simply put, natural law is one's, watch this word, ability to discern law's standard once one realizes the need. It is not, as we have said of our common law, it is not a list of laws. It is an ability in this case. Natural law is an ability placed, embossed upon the person of every man. John Locke said it this way: God has furnished men with faculties sufficient to direct them in the way they should take, if they will but seriously employ them. Please allow me to repeat that. God has furnished men with faculties sufficient to direct them in the way they should take, if they will but seriously employ them. It takes a little work, it takes some assertion. But going further, our common law of government is the outworking of this natural law among a people, a consensus of good sense. Because nature is the mountain from which blocks of facts are hewn. Facts are the foundation stones upon which the frame of reason sets, and reason is the tool revealing how law is applied to government. Now there are three things there. Nature has those mountains from which the blocks of facts are hewn. Nature is God's creation around us, and it is not static. It's alive. It moves. And if it doesn't move because it's alive, a living thing, it moves because it is dynamic by nature. It responds to God's movements and His Word. Thus we have wind and waves and sunshine and earthquakes and erosion and the running of water due to gravity. As our common law says, water runs, and water ought to run. By the way, if man tries to stop water from running, it causes problems, even if he does it for a good reason. Other problems arise from that. These are the dynamic laws of nature, and nature is the mountain from which the blocks of facts are hewn, and facts, number two, are the foundation stones upon which the frame of reason sets. Now this is the processes, the way of the common law. The first thing it does, it discerns the facts from creation, from what has happened. And then the second thing it does, it reasons from those facts. As Paul said, I did not fail to declare unto you the whole counsel of God. That's number one. But secondly, he said, he reasoned with other men out of the Scriptures. The Scriptures give us facts. Even if the Scriptures state law, those laws are facts of reality in that case because they are God speaking. When God says, this do and you shall live, if you do that, you shall die, that is a fact, and it is a law at the same time. True law is fact, but for other purposes, we separate the two. But in all events, we discover nature's facts by digging and looking. Then by using one's natural ability, that is natural law, the ability to reason based upon facts dug from nature's mountain, one can come to right conclusions, if one follows that process. And as I had said before, I'll say again, just because it bears repeating, the phrase natural law is not taken from Scripture. Nonetheless, it is sometimes used with reference to Romans chapter 2, verses 14 through 15, as though these verses teach that everyone knows right from wrong. Does everyone know right from wrong? To know right from wrong is to know how true law applies to every upcoming detail of one's life. Now, as a person goes along in life, they learn right from wrong, but to say that every person knows right from wrong is silly. Children must be taught. They make some conclusions themselves. but they must be taught, or they learn from experience. God teaches them. Some things are very painful, and they learn not to do them again, like touching the handle of a hot skillet, or, as my little brother did, the face of a hot iron. But the child does not know right from wrong, or what is good and bad, or how to deal with the laws of nature and survive. He learns these things, and he does have the ability to learn, and as life progresses and he grows, he gathers more and more and more information from his environment as he encounters it. What is today called the scientific method is nothing beyond the reach of anyone, but indeed is that which everyone has always practiced since the time they were little babies, when they took their first breath and opened their eyes to the light for the first time. It is simply responding and learning from one's environment, because the environment gives us facts. It is a fact. If a child touches the face of a hot iron, he will burn himself. But that's also a law. The laws of heat transfer and energy being transferred from electrical energy or some other form into heat energy on the face of the iron. But these verses, Romans chapter 2, verses 14 and 15, teach that every person, being a member of Adam's race, is endowed with the natural ability to discover and distinguish right from wrong, good from bad. Before I go further, I must read those verses. They say this: "For when the nations, having not a law, by nature from time to time do the things contained in the law, these having not a law are a law for themselves, proving that the law's imprint is written in their yearning, their conscience testifying with their desire. Also between one another they have thoughts of legal accusations and legal defenses." Now that's my best stab at a translation that brings it a little clearer, while at the same time trying to be word for word in the rendition. Let me read it again. "For when the nations, having not a law, by nature from time to time do the things contained in the law, these having not a law are a law for themselves, proving, therefore, that the law's imprint is written in their yearning, their desire, their conscience testifying with their desire. Also, between one another, they have thoughts of legal accusations and legal defenses." Romans chapter 2, verses 14 and 15. Now, nowhere in those verses does it say that people by nature know right from wrong, but it does say, most assuredly, that people by nature, in their nature, have the ability given to them to discern right from wrong. And the proof of that is that they do so. That's Paul's point. For example, the common law tradition claims for its juries the ability to find law's application to the facts and evidence presented to them. The common law does not presume that the jurors know right from wrong. It presumes that the jurors, once they see the facts, the circumstances, and the evidence, will rightly discern what is right and what is wrong. Now, the translation of Romans chapter 2, verses 14 and 15 that I just recited does enlarge the letter of the original just a little, but it remains within the scope of Paul's words. Paul, here taking the role of a prosecutor, says that whether or not all have heard or read, all men are capable, even able, to know what God requires of them, because God, using nature, has written the sense, the ability to discover right and wrong in their desire. They want to know right from wrong. It is inborn, and with that desire, he has provided the ability. I'll drop another quick footnote here. Paul uses the Greek word translated nature here, phusis. And phusis is an old Greek root. And when I say old, I mean older than it was ancient when Paul used the word. And it comes from an old root at the very beginning of the Greek language, meaning to beget, or to bring into physical being. And he uses this word because it says, in essence, that God endows each person through his physical, his phusis, his born life as a person, with the means to discern right from wrong. It is a skill learnt by nature, phusis. It is what is born with him, an inborn ability from the natural physical world of which he is a part. He is part of this creation, this world in which he lives. In fact, it is of significance to note that most every member of Adam's race does some good acts, unless false teaching has forever branded over or seared his conscience and stopped him from doing that. But simply put, at each person's conception, God stamps upon his being the knack to discover and discern right from wrong. And men, Christian or not, born again or not, have an inclination to do some things by physical nature, by tangible nature of his tangible body. He has a natural affection, for example, as a mother does. In most cases, there are exceptions, but in most all cases, toward their children. And by the way, when that doesn't happen, there's something seriously wrong. Something has branded over, as it says in the Bible, seared the conscience, the natural being of the person. Some people aren't just ugly, they truly have become evil and have abandoned the sense of the laws of nature, Romans chapter 1, and done those things, as it says there, physically between one another that are, he uses a euphemism, inconvenient. To deny your fundamental physical, sexual endowment is to show that a person has lost even his ability by nature to discern right from wrong. But in fact, to say that everyone knows right from wrong because such knowledge is the law of nature is absurd, as saying that people know nature's laws of electricity. They won't know them unless they at least try to learn them or have a bad experience with them and find out it's painful. It can even be terminal. Well, this is part 5 of a series of unknown parts discussing our Declaration of 76 and how it applies blow by blow, point by point, to our lives today. Brent Allan Winters, commonlawyer.com.